that what this material is to enlighten and raise man's consciousness. So after we had seen and proved the effects here, we decided, well, let's go to see what happens in the body. How much, how long, what's going to happen? So we went to 500 milligrams. And the reason we came up with 500 milligrams is we actually took it from the ancient Vedic text. The ancient Vedic text says this is what you give to someone to get rid of any problems, any illnesses they got. And they said that you take 250 milligrams, so we said, well, we're giving rhodium and iridium, so let's make it 500, well, 250 of each. So we gave 500 milligrams to find out what would happen. And we decided, well, let's have the guy fast for 40 days. So he fasted for 9 days with nothing but water. He did a high colonic. Then he took this material at 500 milligrams for the next 40 days. Now what happened to him is after about 4 or 5 days, he begins to hear this very high frequency sound. And this continued to get louder and louder and louder. When this guy got to 5 months, we gave him 2,500 milligrams for 5 days. And what happened is the Kundalini started. Anyway, he said it got to happening more often and more often and more often. He actually got up where he's having the Kundalini experience 10 times a day. So, what happens when you have the Kundalini? Tremendous heat comes out of your body. Tremendous heat. In fact, you're sitting down, it can burn your seat. If you're laying down, it can burn your back. You actually get sores and welts. There's so much heat coming out of your body. I believe, and this is my personal opinion, but I believe that you continue to take this material until you can get the Kundalini energy to sustain itself continually. So it doesn't end, it's just continuous, all day long, all night long. And what happens is, at that point, you literally pass through it and out the other side. At that point, you literally achieve this condition of perfect phase conjugation in the body. And you are now an immortal. And this phase conjugation wave is what you must achieve. You must get enough of this in your body that there's perfect phase conjugation, and literally you become the perfected being. And you must pass through the Kundalini and out the other side, and there's no sensation anymore of the Kundalini. You literally have achieved a state where there is no time as we know it. There is no time forward, there is no time backwards. You literally become timeless. And from that point, people, where there is no time, there is nothing that we know in this material world can explain that condition, except you can see everything from that perspective. You can see the future, you can see the past, you can know the hearts and minds of others. Moreover, as this high frequency resonance becomes aligned with the biotransducer system of the body, the 7 chakras can be completely transfigured into the divine image. Literally, you can become the perfect Melchizedek priest, or the Melech Tzedek, or, if you like it, the enlightened being, the immortal. If you really have faith in this, climb in the wagon. Now, in the Bible, it talks about that the Ark of the Covenant actually levitated, and people had to hang on to it to keep it from floating away. Now, how could it levitate? Unless it was a superconductor. Okay? Now, in the ark was the stones. Now, it says that actually, when they got to Mount Sinai, that Moses went up on Mount Sinai, and they said that there was fire and smoke like a furnace was operating on Mount Sinai. You know why it seemed that way? There was a furnace operating on Mount Sinai. And there was fire and there's smoke and there's a furnace, because he was making the gold powder into the gold glass. And he came down from Mount Sinai and he went to the Hebrew people, and what had they done? They had made a golden calf. And so what did he do? He burned it to ashes and he fed it to them. This thing right here is called the white bread, or the showbread. This is talking about the manna, all the references to the manna, how much was taken, what does it mean, and it says, now the Hebrews call this food manna, for the particle man in our language is the asking of a question. What is it? So the word manna literally means in Hebrew a question. What is it? When you go to the Complete Works of Josephus, and it gives you the definition
of the what then is it. The word mana literally means, it translates literally to a question, what is it? That's what the word mana means. What is it? It's a jackal, Anubis, which is the black jackal, which symbolically represented the digestive system. That is the Egyptian rite of passage, coming with the white bread to offer it to the digestive system.
The king is offering the shefa food, if you will, or the what is it, to the Anubis, or the digestive system.
Remember that the Hebrews in the first temple, they had the Ark of the Covenant. They carried it on poles, and in it they had the Ten Commandments and the pot of the manna, or the what then is it. It's referred to as the manna, food of the gods, food of the Spirit, bread of the presence, semen of the Father in heaven, the golden tear from the eye of horrors, or that which issues the mouth of the Creator. When we analyze using thermogravimetric analysis on the iridium, rhodium, platinum, palladium, gold, and silver, what we find is all of them superconduct, but most of them are 200, 300, 400 degrees centigrade. Gold is the only one that superconducts at room temperature. Gold will literally superconduct at body temperature. Gold is always referred to, no other metal, gold is referred to, other than this one issue where it said silver. And it's possible silver might work also, but I know gold works. Gold will be absorbed by the body. It is not a heavy metal. It will be taken in the body, and it literally will flux flow, not resonant couple now like your body function. It will flux flow within your body, and you literally will develop an aura that is maybe 50 times what you have right now. You have to fast so there's nothing else in your digestive system. You have to take only the bread of the presence of God, or whatever you want to call it, in your body in mega amounts. We're talking about at least a gram and a half of white powder. It freely will turn and adjust its spacing in your body until it literally is a perpetual resonating system that then begins to superconduct. And when it begins to superconduct, you truly will become a light being, and you will appear to glow when you walk in the room. You will be one with the Godhead, as he said. All knowledge, all past, and all future is there in the vacuum. And when you have this superconduct body, you literally are one with the Godhead. You are one with the vacuum, and you don't have to read a book. You don't have to study anything. You have all knowledge and all understanding. You literally can read the minds of other people without talking. You don't have to eat again. All you need is a very minute amount of water, and you literally can exist without aging for 800 to 1,000 years. If you don't eat anything else, which you don't need to eat, because literally the energy fields around you are inducing energy into the superconducting body. So all the energy you need is around you. You don't have to eat. Only a very small amount of water is required to maintain yourself. About every 6 months, you'll need just a small amount of additional gold added to sustain it at this condition. But you don't have to go through the whole thing again. This is why the gods came here to earth, according to Sitchin, to get gold. It was very important to their society and their life. It was their food. They needed the gold. And then eventually they gave him the secret of how to make the food of the gods. The god leader was very furious that man was given this information, because it was knowledge that only they were supposed to possess. And the knowledge of how to make the white powder of gold, or which is the food of the gods, it was only known by certain people in ancient times. And those people did live for very long times. As recorded in the Bible before the flood, people lived 800, 900, 1,000 years. And they could ascend and look face to face at God and the Creator and all their ancestors and all the people who had gone before them, and know all understanding of all things, and return back in their physical bodies, because they have a whole light body. Everything within that Meissner field now that comes on when it begins to flux flow is now literally timeless. The Melchizedek priests supposedly could read people's minds, they could see the future, they knew all things. In the Western world, science does not acknowledge the Meissner field around our bodies. The Meissner field is not an electrical field. It's the way people describe it because they don't have any other term, any other way to talk about it. But the aura, or the field around our bodies that exists around our bodies right now, is a non-polar field. It doesn't have a north pole, it doesn't have a south pole, it just exists around our bodies. In the eastern part of the world, they have known this for thousands of years, and they call it the chi. Okay? And they have their medicines that they don't describe as, the polysaccharides or, whatever. They actually talk about it as the vibrational frequency of the chi. And when you have a disease where the chi is affected in your body, you need this material because it contains the chi you need for your body. Or prana. Well, they said, Dave, what you have is the chi, or the life force is what we're talking about here. Or what they call in the East the chi. It's the life force.
Their physical immortality is consistently and explicitly related to an ingested substance. In Old Kingdom Egypt, they believed that you had a light body, they believed you had a physical body. And they believed you had to feed your physical body, but you also had to feed your light body. And what they said you fed your light body with is the Shefa food, which was actually the food of the light body. Now, for a long time, people have studied this and said, well, what is the Shefa food? What were they talking about the Shefa food? When we give the rhodium and iridium to people, we monitor their urine. And we find that 80% of the rhodium is actually taken through their kidneys and comes out in the urine. But the iridium doesn't come out. The iridium does not dissolve in the hydrochloric acid of the stomach at all. Now, there's a couple of things we've learned. The iridium seems to go into the acupuncture system and be associated with the spinal cord and the pituitary gland. Okay? Iridium is the densest, heaviest element known to man. Okay? It and osmium are the two real heavy ones. They're 22.4, 22.43, I think. Anyway, compared to gold, it's around 18.6 to 19.3, depending on which book you read. But iridium is very dense and very heavy. It seems to be the ultimate material. Gold seems to be the perfected one, the one that has the perfect proportion. If I was to make a conjecture, I believe that gold is associated with the pineal gland. I believe that iridium is associated with the pituitary gland. But we do know that rhodium is associated with the thymus. We know that when you take rhodium over a month and a half, that your thymus grows by 40%. So, the thymus is a very important gland, not only because it makes the T cells, but it also is associated with the consciousness, and also I believe you said it was aging, is that what you told me? Anyway, we do know that the thymus normally shrinks from age 12 on, and yet we find after a month and a half of taking this rhodium that in fact it grows by 40%. Now that's really profound. I mean, if you people have been studying, the effective organs in the body, I believe that you will find that ruthenium, osmium, palladium, and platinum all affect certain organs in the chakra systems, or the level systems of the body. I think you'll find that those organs are affected. That these elements are actually part of just a balanced nutritional diet that we should be taking into our bodies. It's just like taking an iron pill. If you're deficient, you're just not in proper balance. You just don't get the right amount of it. I think that the key, though, here is the gold, because gold is not in your natural diet. And gold, I believe, is associated with the pineal. Okay? The concept here that we're working with, that in fact, when this guy got to the point that he began to have the Kundalini experience, he was also beginning to see these light beings. And these light beings literally were coming to him on a regular basis, and they were conveying information to him. They were teaching him. They also talk about here the Merkabah mysticism, which a lot of you know about, the Merkabah, love, spirit, soul. That's actually an Egyptian word, love, spirit, soul, Merkabah. In Old Kingdom Egypt, they believed that the Pharaoh never died. They believed that the Pharaoh ascended the stairway to heaven, or Jacob's ladder. That actually he never died, he ascended to heaven. And so the Pharaoh and the high priest never died. And do you know that they've never found the body of a high priest or a Pharaoh in Old Kingdom Egypt? They've never ever found the body of one of them. They found these edifices that they built, these structures in commemorating their rule, but they never found the body of a high priest or a Pharaoh, because according to their text, they didn't die. They ascended the stairway to heaven. Okay, so what they're saying, people, is that your consciousness, the atoms of your consciousness, can literally travel in space-time. They can go anywhere they want to go, anytime they want. The problem is your physical body has to stay here. Now, the ancient Egyptians, I think, understood this better than anybody. They said we have a physical body that we must feed physical food to so we can grow and become what we're meant to be. But they also said we have a light body, which they call the Ka, and they said you have to feed your light body so it can grow and become what it's meant to be. Well, when you feed your light body, you're feeding your consciousness. You're actually feeding it with the asymmetrically deformed high-spin states of atoms. But these atoms in your body literally interact with the DNA. They literally interact with the cells of your body. They actually interact with the, what do you call them, carbules? And when you understand that when they are sufficient density in your body, so that quantum coherence occurs, that literally everything begins to act as one. And they are capable of totally bending space-time. Totally bending space-time, where even your material body disappears. Is in Old Kingdom Egypt, they had this knowledge. And the Pharaoh and the high priest were the only ones who really knew about it. And the Pharaoh was called a son of God. It was actually taught that he was a son of God. But actually what he did is he went through the Egyptian rite of passage, where he actually became a son of God through this transformational process. Now they believed you could not lie to the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh knew all things. He was a god. And he knew whether you were lying to him or not. Okay, he wasn't a king or a Pharaoh like we think of kings. He actually was something far beyond what we know today as a king. Anyway, when you find out that in fact when they broke into the Great Pyramid and they got past the swedge block that was down blocking the entrance into it, and they got up in the Queen's chamber and then up in the King's chamber, they were so disappointed because when they got in the King's chamber there was no treasure. There was nothing but this white powder all over the ground. And so they swept this worthless light white powder up in a little sack and they put it in the British Museum. You know, what they didn't understand is that in fact the Great Pyramid was in fact where this Egyptian rite of passage was administered. And what happened is this is what they gave the king when he was under the capstone. Now the whole pyramid was actually polished limestone, was painted in rainbow colors of light, gradation as you come up the capstone. When you got to the very top, you had the pyramidal capstone made of gold glass sitting on top of it. It was a natural superconductor literally sitting on top of the capstone, painted in all the rainbow colors. Can you imagine what that looked like at night, coming across the desert and see this huge pyramid out there just glowing at night? And tremendous. And did you know that the capstone, by being a perfect superconductor, was literally in this fifth dimension where there is no time? And so in fact the king who was in the king's chamber was within the Meissner field of the superconductor. And so when he thought, other people who were in a pyramid just like it on another solar system and another galaxy actually could communicate telepathically with him. How many books you read about it being a telecommunication device? Well, this is the way it worked. And you had to be within that field. That's why the King's Chamber is right underneath the capstone. You know, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, if you read this carefully, the Dead Sea Scrolls Uncovered, you'll find out that the Essenes believed they had angels living in their community. And you find out that John the Baptist was an Essene, that many of the disciples were Essenes, and that Mary was an Essene. Who were these Essenes that could resurrect the dead, make the blind see? These were the Melchizedek priests. That with the destruction of the first temple, the Ark of the Covenant was lost, that they literally took the sacred scriptures out in the desert and set up a monk-like community where they always dressed in white, and they said, you know, we're not going to pervert the temple. We will wait here for the coming of the Messiah, that they knew by prophecy would come because they could see all truth. Now they literally could make the blind see and resurrect the dead. But the high priesthood has been gone since the last Melchizedek priest. It was actually James, Peter, and John. They were the last ones of the Melchizedek priesthood. Because it's named after. It goes down through Abraham into Egypt, back out of Egypt with Moses, then down to the time of the first temple and the destruction of the first temple. I went to Rabbi Plotkin at Temple Beth Israel in Phoenix. I said, Rabbi, have you ever heard of the white powdered gold? He says, oh yeah, Dave. But so as far as we know, no one's known how to make it since the destruction of the first temple. And I said, would it bother you if you found out I had the U.S. and worldwide patent position on it? And his reaction was, Dave, you've got a hell of a bunch of decisions to make in your life, don't you?
The reason that I believe gold was important was because in ancient times they understood the importance of the white powder gold or the anatomical gold to life itself. When Jesus was born, they took him frankincense and myrrh and gold. They didn't give him a brick. They gave him anatomical gold. And Mary Magdalene was the daughter of the king of Jordan, and she was also fed the anatomical gold because it works to open our minds. It's a necessary material we need to have to function. And what we're seeing with our working with Ormus materials now is that people are chronically short of these. Tibetan priests are capable of attaining a certain level of theta and alpha for 20 minutes at a time. And Hudson found that people that were taking Ormus without any long-term training on meditation were capable of taking the same theta and alpha ranges for 3 to 4 hours.